PopCultureZone.com is an online shop focusing on hot new comics, including exclusive and incentive variants, CGC graded comics, and tons of other inventory, including pop culture toys and other collectibles, all at low and competitive prices. PopCultureZone.com ships all over the US. And if you are buying raw comics, they offer flat rate shipping of only $4.99. That's right, $4.99. Absolute craziness, right? And there's no taxes included, excluding New Jersey. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they hold a 100% positive feedback rating with over 8,000 completed transactions for this year alone. Make sure to check out the link to their website below, as well as their eBay link, so be sure to give them a follow there as well.
We're going to move on to the next segment, and it's a doozy. Y'all love it because y'all want everybody's opinion. You want our opinion. You want the audience opinion. That's why you submit for this segment called Props or Flops. Chris, tell us about it.
All right, folks, get your props or flops submissions into the Instagram. Upload any picture of any comic book. This could be a comic book that you recently purchased. It could be a comic book that you're looking to purchase. Use the hashtag props or flops. And please, folks, please tag Comic Book Canon and myself at Journos_comics, because two of the picks that I got this week were just hashtagged and they didn't show up in the hashtag. So make sure you tag us as well. Now, upload one of these books that you have just purchased or are looking to purchase, and tell us why you purchased it or why you're looking to purchase it, what you paid for it, and your reasonings behind your purchase. And we will break down the market live here on the show, and we will give it props or flops. Now, keep in mind that these decisions are based on investment reasons. They could be books that you love, but if we see that there is no future value or you overpaid, et cetera, we could be very well giving that book a flops, because that's how we do it on the segment.
Absolutely. And we want to hear your opinion, the audience, even if you didn't submit a book. Tell us what you think about these books, because that's why people are submitting in the first place. Christopher, what book do we have first?
All right, man, we got a spooky Resident Evil #1. This is the original series, the Marvel 1996 series. This is from Raising Elm, good friend of the channel, Raising Elm Comics. So there it is in the awesome CGC signature series yellow label. You see it there in a 9.4, but Raising Elm Comics states this: for this week's props or flop submission, I offer this Resident Evil issue #1, published by Marvel, graded by CGC at a 9.4, signed by none other than Bill Sienkiewicz. And it also comes with the $5 promotional coupon, which you see down there, right kind of behind the props there, which CGC wouldn't slide with the book, of course. I believe this book is props all the way. Sure, some of the movies, TV shows may not live up to what the fans want. I still love the live action projects, but you can't deny that the tons of games are what have made this a popular franchise for over 25 years and counting. Absolutely. Not only are we getting a Resident Evil 8 Village expansion, but there is talks of a Resident Evil 9. We're also getting a Resident Evil 4 remake in 2023. This book, especially with the original promotional coupon, is props all day in my book. Change my mind, he says. Props or flops. Thank you, Raising Elm. All right, let's look at a few details right here. So first, you got the book. You know, it's the first issue of an awesome video game franchise. And yeah, I've enjoyed some of the movies, but some not so much. You know, obviously fans are been wishy-washy about that recent TV show, but that's neither here or there. I agree with Raising Elm that Resident Evil is just a solid franchise and means a lot to a lot of people right now. This being the first book published, I think that definitely matters. And you got an amazing artist. Sienkiewicz is just, you know, always kills it. I just actually sold a signed variant of his myself. But I think those things right there are really awesome factors for this book. But let's look at more, because we're talking about investment purposes here. Let's look at the census. Now, I tell you all, don't get just caught up in census numbers, because there's different ways to look at census numbers. But when we look at these, there's 23 9.8s, 33 9.6s, and 29.4s. So there's not that many, but I don't know the print run. That, you got to weigh those things together as well. But then I also talk about like, well, what's the demand for this book and people actually wanting to send it to CGC? A lot of books have low census counts basically because nobody cares about sending it to CGC, right? But you think people might with this one. 9.8 CGC signature series, there's only 2. There's only 5 9.6 signature series, and this is the only 9.4 signature series. Now, again, I'm not getting caught up in that. Oh, it's scarce, it's rare. No, I just don't know if people have really wanted to say, oh, look, I have Resident Evil #1. I'm going to go get it signed and go send it to CGC. I personally don't think there's that much of demand there for people to do that. It's my opinion. But now let's look at what Raising Elm paid. Said he paid about $100 to $125 roughly for this book. $75 for the signature. So Raising Elm has about anywhere from $175 to $200 into this book. The only sale for a recent sale for CGC was $350 back in April of this year. And that was a 9.2 blue label, not signed. $350. Now, well, you might be looking at that and saying, oh, Chris, there you go. It's a lower grade. It's a blue label, no signature, and it sold for $150 more than what he paid. That's a props all day. Well, what do I always say about looking at one sale? It doesn't mean really anything. There's so little to base off of one sale. So little to base. One could go up tomorrow in a 9.2 and sell for $100. You never know. But because of the artist and because of it being the first publication of this book in comic books and these characters in comic books, I am going to give this a props. I'm going to give this a props. If you look at what, Sienkiewicz's signature sells for, you can, just depending on book. I mean, I sold my book. My book was, it was Detective Comics 1027. And it was like cover D, his variant, and he signed it. And it was a near mint copy. What I sell that book for, like close to $50. So, you look at least like $40 probably for his signature, like easily, in my humble opinion. And if you get it on one of his classic books, expect to pay a lot more. So, to send it off to CGC for a signature series for $75, that's not bad at all. And if you look at this book in a blue label and a 9.4 for about $100, I think that is a decent price. So while there's very little to gauge, there's very little for me to actually look at to really have a comparative analysis, I'm going to go with my gut and say that I think in 5 years from now, especially 10 years from now, I think that Raising Elm can definitely sell this book for over $200 and get a little money back in his pocket.
Okay. I'm going to come on. I'm a bit ignorant on this. It's very niche. It's not my cup of tea, so I'd have to give it a flops. I don't see, but again, I don't see the broader scope of the fans of this property. Right. So that's all I can go by. I have to give it a flops myself. But Raising Elm, we still love you.
Okay, so let's add just a little more context because he said convince me, right? So you're asking you this question: is your main convincing the fact of it being the video game franchise and not having that pull?
I just think it's I think it's a smaller kind of audience, right, in a way, right?
Yep.
Nobody's running out to get the,
and I think that's why we don't see.
Yeah, actually,
sorry, go ahead. You were breaking up a little bit.
Keith said the same thing. Actually, I was gonna mention that. Sorry, Keith. Specific video games are niche part of pop culture. If you were not a fan of the game or didn't grow up with it, holds no value for the general. I mean, that's me right there. So that's why I have to give it a flops myself. So what you said,
I would like to see,
by the way,
if anybody knows the print run or rough estimate of the print run on this book, because I think if we have that and looked at the census numbers, if this is a huge print run and this is all that's on the census, it might speak more to that factor right there because of that low interest. If it's a low print run and you have the numbers that are there, well, then maybe you can argue and maybe give a little wiggle room to say, well, people, there is some type of demand there. So if anybody has that information, let us know.
Yep. All right. But while we wait for that information, we have another book to go over. What is that, Chris?
All right, Spidey fans, we got a Spider-Man book, and it's Spider-Man 24 from the 90s McFarlane run. And this is a graded copy from Super Rad Comics. Super Rad Comics writes, while Spider-Man number 24 wasn't the very first comic I ever owned, it was my first superhero book. At the age of 6, I was totally hooked, and I still have my well-read copy safe in a short box. Now I buy this book every single time I see it because it's cheap. First full appearance of a rad character that should absolutely have a role in the next Spider-Verse movie. We're going to talk about the controversy of the appearance here in a minute. They're going to need more villains, and it would be a missed opportunity to not use Doppelganger. Most sites list Infinity War. Number 1 is his first appearance, as it released a month prior, but in that book, we only see him in 2 panels. For my money, this is the more attractive pickup. Raws usually run about $5, and I pull the trigger when I see a graded 9.8 around $100. What do y'all think? Well, okay, let's look at the appearance controversy. Big shout out to Key Collector, but this is one where it's like sometimes it's not just Key Collector. You know, there's inconsistencies out there with appearances, right? CGC is very inconsistent as well with some of their labeling, but Key Collector simply calls Infinity War number 1 the first appearance and calls this the second appearance and first cover. So I would love to know their reasoning behind not giving Infinity War number 1 a cameo label, first appearance and cameo, and then not giving this first appearance in full, first full appearance, second overall appearance. So this is something that this is a controversy that I don't think has been talked about a lot because, quite honestly, Doppelganger Doppelganger is not a character that a lot of even Spidey fans talk about a lot. And I think when you look at the value of this book, it kind of speaks to that. And we're going to break down some numbers. I do want to say here what Super Rad said about Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse. I think that's just him making that statement. There's obviously no speculation or rumor that this character is going to show up at all or anything. I think, that they would have to introduce Green Goblin and especially Hobgoblin before introducing Doppelganger, even if it's a multi-dimensional, situation where those characters, those Spider-Men are, coming across some of the different villains. I still think it would be the other goblins, because if you read the story, how a Doppelganger is birthed. But I don't know, maybe Peter Parker and Miles and all these Spider-Men could just show up in a multiversal dimension and you have all the goblins there, right? And then he's there. That could happen as well. You never know. But let's look at these numbers. Average high grade near mint raw, $6. 5 months CGC 9.85 fair market value. There's only a couple for sale, $89. Now, if you look at the rolling fair market value average for 9.8s between April of 2021 and April of 2022, the rolling average fair market value is $137. With the high sale of $198 back on April 11th of 2021, that was like right around, April to June was like that peak of that COVID market, right? So, speaking of this book in a 9.8, I'm giving this book a flop, Super Rad. I'm sorry. I got to give this book a flops, and here's why. If you told me that you were picking these books up raw in like a high near mint, maybe 9.8 potential and $5, I could have gave you props, because I do think that this is a character that, while this character, I just don't see this character ever being anything really big. For those that grew up in reading this in the 90s, I drew this comic cover so many times. but there could be more value put into this character, especially if we see this character in Across the Spider-Verse or something like that. I don't think it's ever going to get crazy though. So sure, $5 for a Near Mint Raw. You want to buy a few copies, just like I buy multiple copies of Warlock and the Infinity Watch #1, right? I would never spend $100 on this book in a 9.8. Never. Even though this book was selling at a fair market value average of $137 from April 21 to April 22, and then having a high of 198 in April of last year, I still would never spend $100 on this book in a 9.8. One thing that we saw with the COVID market was not only the hyper vigilant FOMO, we also saw the extreme hype around the 9.8 market, where literally, I mean, Jeff, we saw the lamest books hit when we were doing the actual cover price top 10 list. We saw the lamest books that are like literally dollar bin books still selling 9.8s for like $250, $300.
Yeah.
And now good luck probably getting $80 for it. And you already see over the last, 5 months for this book can't break $100 in a 9.8. So I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. Jeff, I know you are too. Like I said, raw cheap books of this copy all day, every day, fine. I would buy 10 of these books in Near Mint 9.8 potential for $5 each. That's $50. And go send a few out to CGC, press it clean, go send a few out to CGC, get graded. And I probably have more ability to make my money back doing that than I would putting all my eggs in a 9.8 basket. And that's just me. But yeah, unfortunately, 9.8 graded in this book flops.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Props if you're getting them for $5 or in the dollar bins. Flops if you're paying like what you paid for. What did he say he paid for? Where is it? It was under $100. Or around $100. Yeah, I can't agree with that. I have to say it's a flops. I don't think in terms of investment, I don't think you're going to see much of a ROI, return on that investment. All right, Chris, we have one more.
One more thing to that though, because look, this is the market. If for some reason Doppelganger we get an announcement that they're going to be in one of the animated films or in the MCU somewhere, then that actually is a good potential to sell this 9.8. Like if you don't love it for your personal collection and you're in it to make money off of it, and you paid $100 for this book, take advantage, because like we said, people are the FOMO. They feed into anything, any type of announcement, any type of casting. Yeah. So go sell that book because you can probably double your money, but only for a small period of time to where it's selling for under $80 again.
Yep, 100%. All right, the last one here, Chris.
All right, this is going to be a fun one to talk about. More Spidey related stuff.
By the way, the audience has done a great job on letting us know their opinions too.
Awesome. This is a Mary Jane and Black Cat Beyond #1. It's a J. Scott Campbell variant. This is from Splash Panel Comics. Nice handle. Let's read what Splash Panel says here. Hey, Journals Comics. We picked up this alternate cover of Mary Jane Black Cat Beyond, signed by J. Scott Campbell, signed from the J. Scott Campbell store online. Paid $70 after fees. More of a long-term hold, but wanted to highlight how often we see exclusive covers from artists go up on eBay and sell when you could get them direct from the artist for considerably less. Google is free. They're saying use Google, folks. FOMO is not. Okay. All right. Let's break this down. So let's break down what Splash Panel is saying about these exclusives that they offer on like J. Scott Campbell has his website, his store where he does his exclusive variants. You have Unknown Comics, right? Scorpion Comics, all these they do their own exclusives. You could buy them for $19.99. You could buy like the Virgin pack. You get the trade dress in the Virgin for like $49.99, etc. And then you will see them up on eBay because, you know, they set an announcement date. This Saturday at 9 a.m., they go live, right? And then they'll usually sell out from the store sometimes. And then people will be putting them up on eBay, buying them. You know, sometimes you could buy them, or there are sales like double or triple the price. But then usually a couple of weeks later, nobody wants to buy them. This book right now, I found no real sales data on this book. There was one raw sale, and I don't know if it was signed or not, but it was for like $62, and that was it. No graded sales, nothing. There are, I believe, 5 or 6 graded CGC copies on eBay right now for as low as like right over $100, I believe. Nobody's buying them. Nobody's buying them. Here's the thing. I recently talked about how I think J. Scott Campbell is extremely overrated. I think he's a great artist, but I definitely think he's overrated because every single thing he does looks exactly the same. His women are drawn exactly the same with their little tiny little red Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer nose. I can't stand. Like, Jay, change the freaking nose, dude. Just change the nose. That's all you got to do. Make it a little bigger once in a while. Make it a little different shape. I mean, come on. Not every woman looks the same in life. I know that's your fetish, but change it up. Change it up. But here's the thing. I'm going to give J. Scott Campbell a little love here. I actually feel like he changed it up a little with this book. Changed it up a little. We got tattoos on MJ and Black Cat, you know, and like you got this side angle going on where you don't get the maybe MJ. And I always said this, J. Scott Campbell does a much better Black Cat. I actually like his Black Cat. I've always hated his MJ, but it feels a little different. And I love the vibe that he put in here with the banner. You know, it's very kind of I don't know, not I don't want to say like punk rock, but it's got this grunge feeling to it with the tattoos and everything. You know, I like that. I really like that. This is a well done cover. Oh man, I'm so torn. It's signed by him. I'm so torn here. But here's another thing that I got about his signature. All right. Majority of raw books of his, you know, his cover signed by him sell for under $50. And this is all online. You guys can go check eBay sold. I saw some sell for like in the low 30s up to 50. Most of them, $30 to $50 was the range. A large number of signature series of yellow label CGC signature series graded sell for under 100. I mean, there's obviously other ones that sell above 100. You know, they might be like limited ratio variants, something like that. But there are a ton of them that sell for under 100. What does that tell me? That tells me that J. Scott Campbell's signature isn't really worth that much. You know, if you got a book selling for 30 to 50, I mean, you can't value his signature really for much over $50 in the grand scheme of things. So, man, you got a raw book here, $70 from the store. I am really torn because I like this book. But let's look at what Splash Panel says here. More of a long-term hold. Splash Panel didn't come here and say, I love J. Scott Campbell's art, and I've been wanting a signed book of his in my collection because I collect J. Scott Campbell. This was on his store. It's, you know, limited copies available. I went and got it before it went up on eBay or et cetera, and I'm happy to pay $70 for it. I went and bought a couple of variants. I don't buy variants. I bought a couple of ASM 300 homage variants, homages. And I paid like what, $25, $30 for it just because I like them. I have no plans in selling them. I like them. Now, obviously, if Splash Panel submitted this book only saying that, they had the wrong reason. They had the right idea of submitting this because of a long-term hold. Because what are we here to do? Break down investment value, long-term market, et cetera, short-term, long-term. But I had to point that out because Splash Panel, looking at this as a long-term hold, oh my gosh. I gotta go flops. I gotta go flops. And Jeff, I'm gonna say this is how I'm gonna close on this. J. Scott Campbell is a great artist. You know, he's a name. He's one of the names of this generation of the last 20 years. I don't see, though, his value in terms of his signature being worth anything. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm just being real, until after he passes away. I just don't see it. And even then, he's not Stan Lee. And if you look at the value of Stan Lee's signature since he's passed away, overall, it hasn't increased that much yet. And it's been 4 years. So if I was to get, for investment purposes, a J. Scott Campbell signature, I would go for a book that's already a key. And I don't know, I can't tell you off the top of my head, like what. I know. It's those, it's a couple that he did. They weren't variants. They were cover A's. It was issue, you got Spider-Man and Spider-Man kissing Black Cat and Mary Jane's in the background, like, oh my God, like walking in on him. And the issue before was that classic one, I think, of MJ sitting on the couch. Those are sought after key comics that already have value. Go get on a J. Scott Campbell signing with CGC, get a 9.8 potential of that book, send it in and have that book, and wait 40 years, 50 years until maybe he, passes away. And then maybe the signature on that specific book can really do something a lot more for a long-term hold. But just because it's a J. Scott Campbell cover and it's signed, I'm sorry, I can't put investment value into it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to give it a flops too. And who was it? I think it was Sean Miller may have said that, there's nothing significant that happens in this issue either. It's not a key. So
exactly.
He's a great artist.
Norrin Rad. You see what Norrin Rad said right there? That's a good point about, he signed so many books
this one
too.
Right here?
Yep.
Yeah. I listen, I think he's a great artist. I think he has his devout his fans that buy everything and take it all in. But I think, again, I didn't think I'd say it, but maybe he's a bit niche as well. And I don't see long-term value going in terms of him continuing to sign, which is fine. That's how he makes a living. But if you're looking for an investment, just know that it's not going to be a rare signature, and those books aren't that sought after as well. So that's just my 2 cents too.
Yeah.
So that there ends props or flops. One more time though, Chris, let everybody know how they can enter this segment.
All right, folks. Again, we're looking at investment reasons. Upload your book to Instagram, whether it's a book you just purchased or a book you're in the market for. Speculative, short-term, long-term investment, whatever the case may be. Use the hashtag props or flops. Make sure you tag journos_comics because hashtags suck. Make sure you tag Comic Book Canon as well. Tell us why the book interests you. Give us what you pay for it, or what you're looking to pay for it, or what somebody's selling it for. All of your reasons why you are interested in the book, and we will break down the market live on our weekly show here on Comic Book Canon.
I want to point out, I know it was a typo, but it's actually pretty funny. Planet Arizona says I'm going to have to put in a prop or flip for next week. This is fun. Yeah, no, he meant flop, obviously. I is right next to the O, but that's an interesting typo right there.